my affiliation and disclosures. Okay, just considering together which was the switch from slow freezing to vitrification. We started to cryopreserve cells with slow freezing in IVF, and since the beginning of IVF, and then we. When we read the first articles from Gabor, Baita, and Masa Kubayama, it was 2005, from 2005 to 2007. It was introduced vitrification. During the first Istanbul consensus of Alpha Society, we realized that vitrification was already between us, and the survival rate was 95% was described at that time. It was 2012 for blastocysts, and we were still on 50 to 60% on slow freezing. That was the moment in which we understood that the revolution was ready to come. And in fact, after 5 years, the Vienna consensus from the same society defined you can say the death of slow freezing and the description of vitrification as a standard procedure by fixing the benchmark value of 99% of survival for blastocysts. Today, vitrification is gold standard, and it has made possible to efficiently freeze oocytes, to facilitate the movement of frozen cells instead of the patient, to double the embryo survival rate at thawing. If we consider that 3 million babies have been born from cryopreserved embryos, we can estimate that nearly 1 million babies would not have been born if we stayed with slow freezing. I'm from Italy, and more than 1 in 2 babies comes from vitrified cells. So this is vitrification is so relevant. The problem was at the beginning of vitrification, the oocytes and embryos are vitrified and warmed using different brands or ready-to-use kits with protocols that are varying for timing, volume of the droplets, but there is virtually physical and chemical equivalence in this protocol. Okay, and all the embryologists know this. So at that time, I was thinking that solution can be a universal warming protocol to simplify the lab workflow and to facilitate vitrified reproductive cell tissue exchange between centers. Because sometimes it happens that we receive blastocysts that are vitrified with kitazato, and we have a VitaVitro kit or a Vine kit in our lab, and so we thought that this could be a universal solution. To do this article is from 2014. We did this pilot study. This is a proof of concept study in which we used donated oocytes, and the sibling donated oocytes were warmed with the conventional thawing protocol that we were using for slow freezing, and with 1 molar sucrose, the protocol that we were using for vitrification. Surprisingly, we observed the same survival rate and the same developmental competence. We activated these oocytes with for parthenogenesis. So the conclusion was that we paved the way to this universal procedure to warm any reproductive cell, or in the future also tissue. Tomorrow we will have a presentation on ovarian tissue, just using 1 molar of sucrose at the time, or non-permeating solids, irrespective also of the freezing protocol, because if this can work with slow frozen oocytes, virtually this can work also with any vitrification protocol. And in fact, in the following years, I spent my time to demonstrate that it was possible to combine all the kit brands and obtain the same results. For example, this was the first study performed on blastocysts. In this case, we have vitrified blastocysts with the kitazato kit or with Sage kit, and we combined the different kits, and we did not observe any difference. In the second study, which was performed on cleavage stage embryos, we introduced also an in-house kit made with PBS. So we used different basic medium, so TC 199 that you can find in kitazato, VitaVitro, NextSpring, Irvine, or also HTF mobs that you can find in the Sage kit, PBS, hams, and also different non-permeating solutes, trialose and sucrose, and different supplements such as hydroxypropyl cellulose that you can find in Kitazato, Cryotech, albumin that you can find in Vitavitro, for example. Then again, another clinical study, this was performed on oocytes. In this case, the oocytes were vitrified with Kitazato and then warmed with Irvine or Kitazato. And we did not observe any difference in survival rate of these oocytes, and then fertilization, blastulation, and implantation. So we said, okay, this protocol is working. Let's try this if it is working not only in our hands. And we did that multi-center study in which 3 different groups were involved. The oocytes were vitrified with Kitazato kit in Spain, and then they were warmed in Italy in 2 different centers in Rome and in Bologna. Almost 2,000 oocytes warmed, and we did not observe any difference in survival, fertilization, blastulation, and live birth. So after this pioneering experience, I was very happy to see the coming out of off-label use of warming kits. Other brands, other groups demonstrated the interchangeability between brands. Just to give an example, in the first article, that Italian group demonstrated that it was possible to obtain good results combining Kitazato kit and Irvine kit and Sage kit with blastocyst. This other group, this was a transnational article between Spain and Italy. They use Kitazato, Irvine, and Vitrolife Omnia with 1 molar sucrose. This other group from Florence, they use Vitrolife Omnia, 1 molar sucrose with Kitazato. So, in the meantime, I guess you all observed that there was a revival in taking out the steps of dilution and washing in the warming. So we started to read the first articles from American groups in which they tried to warm only using the first solution, so the single-step warming, also known as ultra-fast protocol for warming. And of course, the master in this is Jürgen Lieberman, and who start to share his results on social media, LinkedIn, and then we all were waiting to his publication. And this was the first publication demonstrating that it was possible to use only the first step for warming. So it is very simple, just plunging the carrier in at 37 degrees and then washing in the basic solution and putting calcium medium. So the procedure that was usually 10 minutes, it was finally reduced in just 1 minute. So this is another revolution, a new revolution, because we shortened or 10 times the warming procedure. So this was the input to publish our data on universal warming, and we consider this the latest and largest clinical study on universal warming and the combination of different kits. And the design was to observe the results on more than 3,000 blastocysts. This was published on Herbium Online last year. In the first study, we observed the combination of 12 different groups performing the conventional warming procedure. So with 1 molar of non-permeate solutes and 0.5 molar, and then the washing. And then in the second study, we also analyzed if it was possible to obtain the same results by performing the single-step warming with all the different kits. And we did not observe any difference in cryosurvival, pregnancy rate, implantation between all the studies. So the 2 groups, the study number 1 and the study number 2. And also, we did not observe any difference in live birth and neonatal outcome in the first group, where all the results were completed. So this is reassuring regarding the possibility to combine the different kits. This is just to understand all the groups that we have studied. So 12 different combinations. So Kitazato kit, which was combined with Sage, with Irvine, Sage for vitrification combined with Kitazato, Sage, and Irvine again. Irvine for vitrification combined with Kitazato, Sage, Irvine, and then also an in-house kit with PBS. No difference at all. This is the second study. in which we introduced the single-step warming, and in this case, we also use the Vitavitro kits. And also in the first group, we reduce the volume because if you visit different lab, you say, okay, the instruction for use of the kit that I'm using is suggesting 2 milliliters. I'm using 0.5, or it is suggesting 0.5, but I'm more confident with 2 milliliters. And that's the reason why we also tested the difference between 4 milliliters and 0.5 milliliters to see if there is any difference. And we did not observe any difference at all. So after this article, we were very happy to see that the practice of using the single-step warming was moving from bench to bedside. Once you start to use the single-step, it's impossible to come back. For example, we have groups from Greece, the group of Achilles, Theodoro. They work with the Irvine kit. Again, Jürgen Lieberman, more than 1,000 baby born with the Irvine kit. And then other groups working with Kitazzato, the Kelly Tilleman group from Belgium, Yelke from Turkey, another group from UK with more than 1,000 baby born. So this means that the protocol is safe. And then the Queen, Anna Kobo, who performed the study on all sides. So we continue to investigate the universal single-step warming. So because the previous article, they used just a single kit. This was the abstract published last year for the ESHRE last year. In this case, we used the single-step warming with the Irvine, Sage, and Kitazzato. And this is another study that we are conducting with a Chinese group. And in this case, we compare Vitavitro and Kitazzato for single-step warming with a lot of baby born. So also the universal single-step warming. I mean, the single-step warming, when combining different brands, it is moving from bench to bedside. So we have these two Japanese groups that published on the single-step warming by combining different kits. In this case, Irvine, Reprolife, and Kitazzato. Again, this other group with Irvine and Kitazzato. And then this group from Australia, they combine Cook and Sage. This is very interesting because Cook, it was the only brand proposing the fast protocol for vitrification, and without success at that time. And in fact, it was withdrawn from the market. But now we will see that we are back on the short protocol. We will talk also about the short protocol for vitrification. Anyway, this is the first report of baby born and the neonatal outcome when performing the single-step warming and combining the different kits. So this is the demonstration that it's possible to perform the single-step with any brand. So, of course, with Vitavitro, but with any other brand. So don't believe the hype, the other manufacturer, they say that you can do the single-step warming only with their kits. So it is possible to combine various kits for vitrification and warming. The universal warming with 1 molar of sucrose or trehalose can be efficient, also if we reduce the volume of the warming solution. And what I've said before, it is possible to perform the universal single-step warming with any warming kit brand. So at this point, I'm sure that you are curious to know what's next. And the next, you know better than me, is the ultra-fast vitrification protocol. After this inspiring article of Miguel Gallardo, we are back to the idea that we don't have to wait for a re-expansion of blastocysts and oocytes in the equilibration solution. So this means that potentially we can reduce the duration of vitrification procedure from 12 minutes of blastocysts or 15 minutes of oocytes to just 2 minutes. So we put the oocyte or the blastocyst in the first solution with 7 to 8% of crapotetan cocktail made by ethylene glycol and DMSO, and then we can after 1 minute move the cell to the vitrification solution where we have the double of the cryo preservation cocktail. And again, the master Jürgen Lieberman published about this possibility. We start to have information regarding the safety of this approach with different brands. And also Birol Aydin, who was here before, he gave an important contribution working on oocytes, this ultra fast protocol for vitrification. So in this scenario, the ultra-fast vitrification protocol is very simple. Short rinsing in a basic medium. This is what we always suggest with any brand, any kit. And then just 1 minute in equilibration, the oocyte or the blastocyst shrink, and then we move it in vitrification solution. If we prefer 2 different droplets in order to be sure that we are washing well the blastocyst or the oocyte in the vitrification solution. And then we go directly to load the cell on the carrier. Of course, we investigated the possibility to perform the ultra-fast vitrification protocol with different kits. And as you can see, survival rate is 100%. And in this case, we performed the ultra-fast vitrification protocol and the single-step warming. This previous data was presented at Alpha meeting and published on RBM Online. And this was the table. As you can see, we compared 8 different groups: vitrification with Irvine and warming with Irvine, vitrification with Irvine and warming chitozato, vitrification with Irvine warming with Vita Vitro, vitrification with chitozato warming with Irvine, vitrification with Sage warming with Irvine, vitrification with Sage warming with chitozato, vitrification with Sage and warming with Vita Vitro, vitrification with Vita Vitro and warming with Vita Vitro. We did not observe any difference, and now I'm proud to communicate almost 30 baby born, and these are the first baby born from the universal approach for ultra-fast vitrification and single-step warming. So it's the first time that we present the data on baby born. So on a timeline, so after the introduction of vitrification in 2005, we start to think about the universal warming proof of concept. So the idea that the vitrification kit brands can be combined. And then after the introduction of the single-step warming, the possibility to investigate that the single-step warming it is feasible also with different brand kits. And then we are now 2026 to universal ultra-fast vitrification and single-step warming. So the take-home message is that it is possible to combine various kits for vitrification and warming. It is possible to perform the ultra-fast vitrification combined with a single-step elution with any kit brand. This represents for me a transformative step towards a truly universal warming approach with the potential to democratize IVF practice by breaking the dependency on proprietary vitrification system imposed by Belgian manufacturers. Thank you for your attention.